Hi there. It's Friday the 13th, which sounds ominous in and of itself. Uh, May the 13th. And if you're me, you spend an awful lot of time in waiting rooms, in medical office suites and waiting rooms. And many times, the time that you spend there is spent in conversation with other people who are on the same wiki boat you're in. And that's where the seed or seeds for this particular blog post came from, in a discussion in which one of the folks that was waiting, discussing their illness and their journey, used the term stasis and status quo and used them incorrectly, which is not uncommon, frankly, but it was interesting to me that somehow they'd managed to get that scrambled up. And the more I thought about it afterwards, and no, I didn't correct them. I just continued with the conversation as it was going, because those conversations are really important if you're involved in a medical, journey of any consequence, and certainly if it's a cancer journey and you're in a cancer clinic, treatment clinic. A lot of the information that comes up is really important information because you're talking to people that have either been down the same road that you're going on and have an advantage of having started earlier, or you're talking to people that have just started their journey, and perhaps you're able to go ahead and help them deal with the anxiety and things that are unknown. And in all honesty, in many instances I've gotten more information about the progression of my disease and where it was going, about graft versus host disease, about all kinds of different things in a clinic waiting room than I have from some of the medical professionals I've dealt with. But this idea of stasis and status quo really have an awful lot to do with the human condition, I think. Not just in their origin, but in certainly in how we use them today, and or how we fail to use them. I mean, not everybody uses stasis in a sentence often, but stasis is an interesting term because it talks about a situation where you're in balance, pretty much, because the forces involved in whatever it is that you're looking at are equally matched. And consequently, there's no movement in this tug of war. Whether it's between illness and wellness, depending on what it is. The fates have aligned in such a way as that the forces are equal on both sides and nothing much is changing. And realistically, you could go ahead and look at that in terms of the status quo, because the status quo means, quite literally, the state of affairs as it is right now, and but they're not the same thing, even though they sound like they might be, or even though it sounds like you could use them the same way. Status quo could be used if the state of affairs that you're facing is in a constant state of flux, right? The status quo is that there is no status quo, and in which case stasis is an act of disruption because things aren't balanced. And hopefully, when you're talking about an illness or when you're talking about life and business, the things align in such a way as to allow progress, to allow forward movement. That isn't always the case. Certainly we hope that it's not causing things to move backward. and, slide down that slippery slope into oblivion. But I know I've thought about this over the course of my illness, and now, it's 8 years since I was diagnosed. It's 3 years plus since I was transplanted. There are plenty of late nights where you start thinking about all kinds of different things, and stasis is, in many instances, is something you want to maintain if you've been faced with catastrophic illness, because the stasis of wellness, of being okay, of not having things shift in the wrong direction, is a good thing. That's the kind of status quo you're looking for, unless you're looking for growth, unless you're looking for success. If you're looking for success, there's got to be a certain measure of disruption that takes place. There's got to be a certain measure of change, certain challenges and evolution moving forward. The scales being tipped in one direction and not the other. And I think it's kind of important to look at your life every once in a while and figure out where you are. Not so much so that you can stay there, but so that you can improve, so that you can reach your goals and objectives, so that you can maintain some kind of forward movement, some kind of progress. And I think the more that we're capable of doing that, both subjectively and objectively, the more likely we are to meet the challenge and move our lives in a positive direction. I know these things, thinking about these things and then acting upon. That's the secret word right there, acting. Any kind of improvement's going to result from action, and action can be disruptive and uncomfortable, but it's important. It's important that you not become stagnant, that things don't remain the same, that you are in a constant stasis where nothing's happening, where the status quo is not something to be desired, not something to hope for, not something to strive for. So there's a certain amount of status quo involved in the concept of stasis, but I'm not sure that we should look at them in the conventional way all the time. Sometimes we should look at them as tools to measure the state we're in right now in comparison to where we need to be. I've always said that you need to go ahead and take a snapshot of where you are and have a really good basic understanding of where you are in order to plot the course to where you want to be. So you have to have a point of origin. So plenty to think about in a weekend. Hopefully your Friday the 13th is going well, and there are no black cats or ladders to walk under. In the meantime, stay well, take care, and think a little bit about this forward movement concept. That's it for now.